at a social event. I've always wondered what it would be like to ask her about her journey and some lessons in leadership. I never imagined it would be in a setup like this with so many leaders in the audience themselves. But thank you very much for this opportunity. It is truly an honor. Thank you for being here, and I think we're all looking forward to a very invigorating and enriching dialogue today.
Well, I hope we don't disappoint them.
No, I'm pretty sure. Because we just heard what Amulya read out. I mean, it screams leadership in every sentence. So it's just amazing that you wear so many hats, you think about so many aspects. And there I want to just quickly draw your attention to one slide that Rinku's presentation had. It was Dr. Muhammad Yunus who said, "There is no going back. Prepare for a new future." So I would like to ask you, and please feel free to, I would love for this to be really about your journey, and if I butt in at times, please excuse me, but otherwise, we'd love for you to share with us, and then we can make it a little conversation, and I will be, Divya will be sending me some questions that Zoom viewers may be having, so at some point, if we can just take a few questions from the audience or from, I hope that flow is okay with you?
Yeah, whichever way you want.
Thank you. So I'd like to ask you, clearly your leadership in this unprecedented crisis has been something that the world has recognized, business leaders have recognized. You are at a unique junction as a corporate leader, as a woman leader, as an example to so many people in this country and in the health space. And from your viewpoint, what is leadership going to mean in the coming years? Is it truly never going to be the same again? What changes do you think we're going to make in the way we act, we think, we go about our daily lives?
So, as Indians specifically, we're quite philosophical. And the Gita talks about being a karma yogi. Can you hear? Am I okay? So, we just do what we have to do because there is a need. And it happened with the Apollo story. My father was in the US, and 4 of us, good little girls, grew up in the US. And, he would write in Telugu to his father, my grandfather, saying, I did all this, and I had an institution, and we've done some exciting stuff, so on and so forth. And one fine day, my grandfather wrote to him, and he said, how does it matter to me? Because what will I tell them in my village that my son is in the US and he's doing these things? It doesn't really make a huge difference. And I think that got my dad thinking. So he came back with 1 wife, 4 daughters, 1 car and a washing machine, and moved back to Chennai because, Chennai is near Aragonda where we come from. And he started this practice, and he couldn't even afford a secretary. So, there was half a secretary because the other doctor paid for the other half. So having said that, it just happened because it was, there was a need, and my grandfather told him, listen, you need to come back, and then this happened. Then there was a patient who died because he could not afford to go to the US for a cardiac surgery, and it was like, we need to do something. And so then the whole Apollo story happened, laws had to be changed, legislation had to be changed, and so the story just kind of grew in a way, but the underlying philosophy and the ethos of it is that, you really need to do something about it. And then the 4 of us started working, and honestly we worked because it was hard to see your dad, and we were all good daughters. So we said we were daddy's good little girls, I guess. We keep telling him that, cheap labor. But we worked with him. And we enjoyed every moment. So, sometimes my mother says, you people don't know anything. You don't even talk about the children. It's only about the hospital and work. Because honestly, I don't think we know too much beyond that ecosystem. So that happened. And again, it was always a need. The pharmacies happened because there were spurious drugs. And, how do we give drugs of quality to our people? So then my sister started that chain. Then there was the whole digital enterprise now, which we're starting. It's because we know it's changed to a digital world. But in the COVID situation, and I think that was an eye-opener for us, that we realized that there was just so much to be done. There was systems to be brought in. The protocols of treating somebody when there was a crisis. and honestly, when we look at our data, the first 30 days, outcomes were not that great. Next 60 days, it got better. 90 days, so much better. So, we were monitoring data in such a way, and we knew that at the right time, right intervention, literally the cocktail of drugs made a difference. So I think every time somebody does something because there's a crying need in society, you come up, you intervene at the right time. So, there's a song about saying, what I do it all for you. And I think that's probably the philosophy of most people, and it's not just me, I think it's everyone here, that you do it because there's a need, you do it because, you really feel you have to do it. And to me, I think that's
because
really
it's the right thing to do.
That just goes back to our, Indian philosophy of, there is a law of karma, you do what you have to do. The fruit of it will happen, you can... I think everyone is successful. If you go to bed feeling like, I've done something, it's successful. And I want to ask you all a question, since we're all here together. And this is how, I think COVID has changed people's thinking. How many of you in this audience would love to be powerful? Can you raise your hands? I mean, you can. It's not that you can't. So how many would love to be powerful? And how many would love to be beautiful? All the hands. Yeah. Right? And how many of you would like to be like rich?
I'm okay with
Yeah, but then there's no equation for rich, right? You don't know what that is. That's just a moving target. So there were multiple things, and this was really, you have to think these things through. And it's really about how many of you want to be impactful.
Yes.
So that's probably the answer. In all our lives, you can have all this because literally it's in the mind, it's in the beholder, it's in whatever. And it's all about being impactful. And if you're impactful, it answers all the other asks. And I think this is what has changed during COVID. This is what leadership in COVID is about. And if you really look at it, it's like, how do you make a difference? How do you make an impact? So it's all about being impactful, and I think that was my lesson.
How lovely.
That's what I learned.
No, that is really a beautiful way of putting it. But I want to quickly touch on something you said in between. And while you said it was cheap labor, I think it was just beautiful that you had the 4 sisters. And I want to ask you to share with us, what is it like to be with your sisters? And one thing I've heard is that the 4 Reddy sisters always play upon each other's strengths. They reinforce each other's strengths. Tell us how it is. How does the dynamic work? How beautifully the 4 of you work together to strengthen. It's not 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. It becomes 2 plus 2 is equal to 6 because each other is sort of feeding off each other's strengths. Tell us a little bit about the sister.
I have to give my parents credit for that. And so my mother, we love this. So she gives each one like a goddess avatar. So Sunita handles finance and strategy and all that piece. So she said, okay, she's Lakshmi. And then Sangeeta is, she's really the wise one. Even though she's the youngest, if I had a problem and I had to think something through, I would go to Sangeeta. And, she was incidentally the president of FICCI and did a great job. So Sangeeta is really the Saraswati in the family. And Shobna is the one who's, she's very entrepreneurial. And she's started things and she's grown it. She's fought for the right things in life. So, so my mom would call her Durga. So then that left me and I said, Mom, so what am I? She said, well, you have to look after everybody. So you're the Parvati. So in a way, so this is the joke in the family. And so that's how we morph into each other's roles. And, between us, we have 10 kids. And we have 4 grandkids because we share them all. I don't know if they love it, but anyway, we do it. And so having said that, I think each of us has a strength. Someone just holds things together, the other one builds, the other one strategizes, and the other one really has the wisdom. And we've realized to call on each other's strengths. Otherwise, if we feel each one can do it ourselves, there may be chaos. But if we realize that someone else is actually better at something else, I think we draw from each other's strengths. And we've learned to do it, and I think the credit goes to my parents, because I think my dad knew to pull the strings very well. You know, he would know exactly which one would deliver on what he wanted, and he would just go, and then he'll say, by the way, keep your sisters informed, you know. So that was his dicker. My mother would brook no nonsense about any dissent in any place. So while she's gentle and she's beautiful and she's kind, she's very tough on ground rules. So that's what happened, and that's where we are.
It's lovely. I think it's great to hear that from her. For all of us who have sisters, I have 2 younger sisters. I wouldn't want to have it any other way. This is, you know, just reinforces
but
our...
if you're the eldest, remember to share your clothes and the children and everything else except your husband.
My sister very kindly actually gifted me a little thing that's still on my wall saying, a sister and her wardrobe are forever. So maybe that should be
I
elder
always
sister.
pack 3 extra, because I know one sister of mine, Shobna, will say anyway she would have packed, I don't need to bother. So we've grown up like that.
Right. But tell me, Preetha, I want to change gears a little bit and ask you how your inspiration and how the way that you show to the team at Apollo and the many organizations that you have enriched and spawned in the enterprise, how has this last 1 year's journey and maybe the journey before that been for the women in the team? I'm trying to say this in the context that for a lot of young working women, young mothers, young professionals, the pandemic has been really bad in terms of just the time that it takes for them to sort of, you know, get rid of, get home organized, be there for the work meeting. Is the load being shared equally between spouses? How do you think it pans out for younger women? How do you think we leaders who are sitting in this room, what advice would you give us that we take inspiration to make the journey easier for younger colleagues, for younger women?
You know, I'm in total admiration of the way, I've seen it within our teams, but I've seen it in multiple organizations about, especially during COVID, how people are literally frontline warriors. And those who, you know, don't have the opportunity to work maybe in the hospital system or frontline, they still do a lot from, you know, their thought, from the back end, small things, but I think they do a lot. How do the women cope as against men, especially women who are working? To me, it's a lot of it is in the mind and in the fact that, you know, they just make a statement saying, I'm needed here, I have to do this, and they were out doing it. Because a lot of our workforce, 85% of our workforce are actually women. And they just literally dropped everything and they did what they had to do. You know, they hadn't seen their children, they haven't, I mean, their husbands were sometimes at home because they were working from home. Food really did not matter at that time because, you know, that was just by the way, you eat to exist. So I think the priority shifted so much, and the men in the house didn't mind doing what they had to do, which was technically considered something that the women would do. And the women were out there battling because it was, you know, they were required in the front lines. And to flip it, you know, supposing there's a war and the soldiers have to go out, the wives at home are not really saying that, you know, this is my job and that is yours. It was kind of understood. I saw during COVID that the women were out there, you know, frontline because the nurses are women, a lot of doctors are women, and the men were like handling it from the back. So the story kind of flipped, but people just, they were so selfless in their giving and their sense of duty, in their sense of sacrifice. So I think they're like, I get tearful when I, you know, really think of the kind of stuff which has happened over the past 1 year. And the whole priority has shifted. What was so important same time last year ceases to be important today. So
one can't even think of what we were doing at this time last year because everything seems to be almost another lifetime away, right? Oh my God, did I really do this in March 2020? It seems like a few years ago.
It's changed.
Absolutely. Priorities have changed. But do you think it has made things easier for women in the average woman in the workforce? Yes, I hear you say a resounding yes for the people in your team and in the hospital. Do you think that by extension it's likely to happen for women in other fields perhaps? Do you think COVID and the whole work from home and the pressures that it put on families is likely to make it easier for working women?
The India which we have, and it's probably the same even for the developed nations, that it's different worlds. I think today's paper spoke about that Kannagi place, that slum, which, the women
the
are
hidden
like,
truth itself.
Yeah, the hidden truth. And that's also during COVID, that is women. And on the other side, in the IT and in the digital sector, the women are doing so well, and the work from home is actually working very well for them. The first round of the RT-PCR testing was a woman in a lab in Pune. So I think in different aspects of society, women have done extremely well. There are women sitting here who I know so well, who've done so well during COVID because they've been innovative, they've been hardworking, and they've come out with some amazing stuff. So I think it works, and in different pockets of society, women have flourished and done well during COVID. But in some others, I think it's really been hard, and those are the aspects which worry and which really make me sad.
Right. I'm going to zoom out again a little bit. And from where you are right now, I'm going to zoom back and say, Rinku actually shared a quote with me, said, please highlight it and ask for Preetha's thoughts on this. It said, we have cracked the glass ceiling. We haven't managed to shatter it yet. Can I have your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so there's a World Economic Forum data which says that in the current aspect of gender diversity and the way it's going to be, it's going to take 202 years exactly, and this is all data extrapolated one against the other, to really have equality, or the women actually taking over men. So if we talk about shattering the glass ceiling or even cracking it, I'm not so sure, because there's stories of some who've done phenomenally well, but then that's not even 0.1% of the whole world. So I think it's just the mindset, the genetic way we are built, and it's kind of the attitude about prioritizing maybe. So it's going to take a while, but if we continue to say that we are equal contributors, but there is a yin and yang. There's no point us getting into male shoes